The second lecture on Chapter 2 deals with bias data, bad data, and we want to avoid this. So when we say something is biased, when I go take a sample, my sample results systematically differ from the population. Now, my sample is most likely not always going to match my population perfect. I might be a little lower, a little high, but when I put them all together, they'll match the population. So when it's biased, it's always going to be different. It's never going to come into the population. So we have a couple sampling methods that create bias. And the first is convenience. Convenience is just that. It's convenient. My subjects or my objects are readily available. Meaning that I can just take those potato chips and just take them off the top of the box and measure those bags when I know that maybe the heavier ones went to the bottom. I could stand outside a certain building if I was interested in the amount of time people study, and I sit outside the library and I got students leaving. Well, typically, when I'm looking at study time, I want to go all over campus. I don't want to go to the library where they're studying. A voluntary sample is just that. You volunteer. You voluntarily choose to be in there. So it's a choice that you make. And the only time I'm going to choose that if I have a strong opinion. So a voluntary sample is just going to get those people that really care. It might be when you're asked to call in and vote. Maybe you're watching the NFL and they've made a call and they want all people that agree with the call that the officials made to phone in and express your opinion. Well, if it's not even my team or I don't care, I'm not going to call in, even though I may think one way or the other. So when you do that, you leave out people. So that's two types of sampling methods that create bias. Notice they are sampling methods. Now what we're going to talk about are types of bias. So when we look at types of bias, we have selection bias. And this is my procedure for collecting my data or my sample includes or excludes certain people. And we just talked about a situation like that. Typically, a telephone survey is an example. When you use a telephone survey or anything on the telephone, you're also having a type of bias called selection under coverage bias, and that is because of unlisted numbers. I mean, right now a lot of people are using cell phone and their numbers not listed. Maybe they have no phone, so you've left those people out. They had no option of even being in there in your survey. So that's called under coverage. You didn't cover everyone. Non-response is just that. They don't respond. So it might be that the subjects can't be reached. Or they simply do not respond. So it might be a telephone survey or a mail-in survey, and you don't mail it back. You fail to mail back your survey. You hang up the phone, so you never responded to their survey. Another type of bias is response bias. That's when subjects answer differently. In other words, they lie. They answer differently. And it might be because of the question itself, or it might be because of the interviewer. So if I was to ask maybe about drug use, and I asked you if you use drugs, you may respond differently because I'm asking you that question. So you might not tell me the truth. So when you're looking at a sample, it's very important you know, how was this sample obtained? how did they go about and collect these people to be in the sample? Was it just convenience? Did people volunteer to be in it, or did they systematically pick these subjects or objects to be in their sample so that they would represent the entire views of the population? So that's one thing that when you read a statistical study, how was the sample collected?